Hi, this is Lave from Crashtesthobby, showing you how to laminate the Pinata. We'll also be showing you how to hinge the elevons. Start by cutting your elevons to length, making sure all your angles are going the right direction, and also making sure you cut a right and a left elevon. It's easy to cut two lefts or two rights, but trim them down so you have about a 1/4 inch gap on the outside end. Split some laminate the length of the elevon, and starting out, make sure the elevon is square, lay the laminate over the top and iron it flat, and then just start rolling the elevon and ironing each edge as you go. Now normally I use the edge of the table, but since I'm shooting a video, I'm going to use this wood block in order to make it so it's easier to see. But I keep checking to make sure it's square, and then using the edge of the table I would take and continue to wrap and iron the elevon, the laminate onto the elevon as it goes round. Make sure your iron's the right temperature. If it's too hot, it'll warp that elevon. Also makes it harder to get the wrinkles out. Your iron needs to be just hot enough to make that laminate stick and to shrink. Now each time we add a layer of laminate, the elevon gets stiffer, and when we hinge it, it becomes stiffer still, especially because it has 4 layers of tape and laminate into that hinge line. Now using a new razor blade so it won't snag and tear, trim the extra laminate off. You can use 2 or 3 layers depending on how heavy you're building and how big of a motor you're using. I think on this I actually used 2.5 if I remember. And then just cut some relief cuts and trim it. Using your iron, just iron the edge down. Once again, trimming the other end, cutting a few relief cuts, just press it down, and I'm ironing all the layers at once on those ends. And then I check to make sure it's square. To do the body of the plane, or the wing, I'm only going to show one side, but it's the same on both. Start by putting a stripe right down the middle, and then just start working towards the edge. If you need to cut a relief cut somewhere, do it. But the top and the bottom are done mostly the same, so I'm only going to show one side here. But if you do it right, most of the wrinkles will actually disappear right off the plane without having to work to get them out. Now I usually leave about 1 inch of laminate around the back of the plane and 2 inches around the front. That 2 inches around the front adds strength to the front of the plane. And the back of the plane is going to have the hinges, so it's going to have some extra reinforcement that's not shown yet. Because the laminate's clear, I'm not real careful on cutting perfectly straight lines, because you can't see where I make mistakes or what other, because the laminate goes clear when it gets the heat from the iron. And then just wrapping it up, I want to make sure that all the edges are sealed well, so I iron a little extra anywhere there is a edge coming and where it won't peel up. Once again, wrapping around that leading edge and working over where that seam makes contact with the foam or laminate underneath. Now that I already had the bottom of the wing laminated, always start on the bottom and work and then do the top. That helps to keep the wing from being warped. Now on the end, I'm going to cut 4 or 5 relief cuts. And then just pulling them down one at a time, I iron them in place. Very simple. Let's do the other wing tip here in just a second, and so you get the idea. But you can just see, I just one piece at a time, just fold that up and iron it down. And then I work on those seams. Anywhere there's a end Once again, making a few cuts. I fold it up, iron it in place in the next one, and the next one, and then trim off the excess. I'm kind of obsessive compulsive, I just keep ironing. Now I'm cutting some strips of tape to use for the hinge. This is the extreme tape with fibers that go both directions, and this makes some of the strongest hinges I've seen in any design. But I don't want that much weight at the back of the plane, so I'm splitting the tape down to 1 inch wide. Now make sure you get this on the right part of the elevon. It goes on the thick, pointy edge, which is the top, and that makes sure that you put it on so that the hinge is on the top of the wing. So I put the tape half onto the elevon, then put the other half onto the wing. I want to leave just a daylight gap in between there. And it goes on that easy. And then I fold it over. Sometimes I pin it down, it's a little easier to hang on to. And I put a piece on the underside of the elevons. This tape is 150 pounds per square inch tension, so 2 strips of it is about 300 pounds per inch. That's why it doesn't break. Let's do the other one. Put a piece of tape along the seam line. Trim it down so I don't get it stuck there, and then just leaving a daylight gap, stick it down on the top of the wing. Then folding it over, put a piece of the extreme tape down the bottom of the wing, trim off the excess, and there they are. Now you'll notice that they're kind of folded up. Don't worry about it. That will go away when we iron the laminate over the top. Reason we put laminate over the top is because if you don't, within about 3 months the tape will turn yellow and the adhesive will dry out and the elevons will fall off. So we're going to just put some strips of laminate over the top, and the particular laminate we sell with the kits and is included in the kits prevents that from happening because it's got a UV shield in it. And just spread that out and iron it in place. Once again, watching all your seams and wrapping it around. The laminate strips are 2 inches wide so that they well cover the edges of the 1 inch wide extreme tape or bidirectional tape, whichever brand you're using. Now you'll notice that elevon wants to point up, but watch what happens here. I'm going to put some of the laminate there, and as I start to iron it in place, almost immediately that hinge line relaxes and that elevon will stay down. Now I'm going to fold the elevon down, and then using my iron I'm going to iron that hinge line in order to relax that tape so that the elevon lays flat. And then trimming both ends. Sometimes you can have a little ball of tape at the end or laminate, and it makes the elevon bind as it goes up and down. Let's do the other side. The tape's already in place, so now we're going to put the laminate, iron it in place and wrap it around the edges. Here's the other piece, since I'm not quite as long as the wing on these. Iron them in place. Trim the corners and the edges. And then we're going to lay it down flat. Oh, I had some air bubbles in there, and a trick to getting air bubbles out is take a pin and poke it a few times in the air bubbles and then just iron over the top and the air will squeeze out. Once again, you notice how that elevon wants to pull up, but as soon as we iron the laminate on, the laminate is so invisible I couldn't even see the edge once it had ironed. I had to feel because I couldn't see it. It's amazing that it's that clear. Then folding it down, I relax the hinge by ironing right on that seam. These hinges are so easy to do and they are so strong it makes the plane as tough as it is. This is the end of video 2 Video 3 will show you the electrical wiring, and video 4 will show you the radio installation. Thanks for watching. This is Lee with Crash Test Hobby.